Sean here. On this episode of Empty Pocket Speed Shop, we're going to get some parts installed on War Machine, make a little progress toward getting it back on the road. Also, don't turn it off. Some of you guys that only stay clicked on for about 15 seconds and then move on to the next video, even if you don't like watching me put parts on my car, stay tuned. Somewhere in the middle of this episode, I'm going to do a montage of some military helicopters flying missions in Afghanistan. I'm going to put that together to a little bit of music, so you guys stay tuned, watch a little bit of that. And I also may introduce all you guys to my dogs. So some new things that I'm going to throw into the video. So you guys don't turn it off. Stay tuned, and we'll get some work done on War Machine, and we'll have a little bit of fun while we're doing it. Hey y'all, Sean here, Empty Pocket Speed Shop. Starting a new week. Got a lot of work to do on War Machine this week. First thing I'm going to do is work on the transmission cross member. I got to thinking after I stopped filming my last video where I talked about maybe having to modify the factory cross member. You know, these cars, a lot of these Monte Carlos came with big blocks and 400 turbos from the factory. So what I'm hoping is when I get under the car and I have all my parts laying there, that the holes are already in the frame to move that cross member back to where it lines up with my 400 turbo that I'm putting in there now. So we'll see. I'm going to get under there first thing and start trying to figure that out. I'll try to get the camera under there a little bit and shine some light and show you guys what I'm talking about. After I get that done, if we can knock out the transmission cross member pretty quick, then we'll move on to trying to bolt on some of the accessories on the front of the engine. I don't want to put the radiator in until I have everything else done because it'll just be in the way. You guys know, if you've ever worked on one of these Monte Carlos, especially with a small block in it, there's enough room. If the radiator is out of the way, I can get over in the engine compartment with the engine and work on it. It's crazy how much room there is in these things. But anyway, that makes it a little bit easier to reach those front accessories and try to get everything bolted in. So we're going to try to make as much progress as we can this week. Like I said in my last video, if you guys watched it, if you did, thank you. If you didn't, go back and watch it. See how the history of War Machine and how we got to this point. But we're going to get as much done as we can this week. I'm hoping to have this thing running in a couple of weeks. Won't be finished, but I'd like to have it running in a couple of weeks. And then I've got to finish my rear suspension. Got a few other things I got to wrap up, and then that'll give us some time to start taking this thing out on the road and get the engine broke in, get the transmission broke in, get everything kind of broke in a little bit before we take it to the racetrack and start thrashing on it. And I know a bunch of you guys are saying, oh man, you know, just break it in like you're going to drive it. Well, I am. This is not just a race car. This is a street car. And I plan on driving it other times besides just going to the drag strip. So I don't want to fire it up and immediately go wide open throttle and do a big John Force burnout and break a bunch of stuff in the engine before I even get a chance to have any fun with it. So we are going to drive it around a little bit, do a little break-in period, and then I'll drain the oil, put some new oil in it, new oil filter, pop the valve covers off, we'll check the valve lash, check everything out, just make sure everything's running like it's supposed to. So we'll keep trying to make some progress on this thing, so you guys continue to tune in. If you've been watching my videos, thank you. If you are just now finding my channel for whatever reason, you know, with my tens of subscribers that I have, you guys subscribe, hit the like button. One thing I did notice, and I'll say this, and then I don't want to talk too much on this video because I talked a lot on the last one. I want to try to continually add more fun to the videos as I go. I don't want them to be too serious. I get out here sometimes and I get tunnel vision about what I'm doing, and I'm just working on a car and I'm not worried about having fun. So you guys bear with me. I'm going to try to make it a little bit more fun. But as we continue to work on these things, I'll continue to try to add a little bit more entertainment value for your dollar. I don't really get a dollar. I don't really get, you know, since Motor Trend got bought out by Warner Brothers, that ruined my deal on my new Motor Trend TV show that I was going to have. I know what you're thinking. You didn't have a Motor Trend TV deal. Well, now I never will, okay? And it's all because of Warner Brothers. Thanks, Warner Brothers. I was this close to having a Motor Trend deal. Now, I've just got a YouTube channel and no subscribers. So, you guys help a brother man out. Go subscribe to my channel, like, share, tell everybody about it. I'm going to keep having a good time with this car. And then we'll have a good time with that car over there. And this car back here. Last episode you guys saw the 55 in the background for just about the whole video. So I figured I'd start this week out with the 56 in the background. So yeah, I got my two Tri-5s sitting here. Neither one of them run. Both of them are disassembled. Neither one of them even have an engine in them. But they're there. They're here in my shop. I've got some Tri-5 Chevys. I don't know. Hey, you guys stick with me. A little bit of future casting here. When we get War Machine back together and running and ready to go to the racetrack, ready to do some cruising, we're going to start on that 55 Chevy, I think. I think that's what we're going to do. Because my goal, for those of you that are watching, if any of you are Tri-5 Chevy fans and you've never been to the Tri-5 Nationals in Bowling Green, Kentucky in August, it's the greatest gathering of Tri-5s in the world. I go every year and I've never taken one of my cars. My goal for this year is to take a car with me to the car show. Imagine that. I know, it's crazy talk. But that's the goal. So when we get War Machine up and going, I think I'm going to throw down on the 55 Chevy over there and see if I can't get it ready to go. I want it running and driving this summer so I can play around with it a little bit. So got a lot of work to do. Got a lot of projects to do. There may be some other stuff that we get thrown in here in between. I may have to take a week or two off of War Machine. That's why I want to get as much done as I can this week. So you guys bear with me. We're going to throw some parts at this thing. Alright guys, let me show you a little bit about what I got going on right now. So this is the factory transmission cross member for War Machine. As you can see, it's got the two humps in it. These double hump cross members are more common on the first gen. The second gens, they're pretty rare. But anyway, that allows you to run your dual exhaust without the cross member being in the way for the most part. But that's the factory brackets that holds this thing in place. And yes, some of this stuff is old and worn out, but it's what I got. And it's still working. So let me get under here and we're going to take a look. So I got to move my jack so I can get access to where the transmission mount is supposed to go. And I just realized it's a whole lot colder under this car than it is out there. So let me look here. All right, you can see the shiny marks. That's where the cross member bolts were originally. So now that we're down here looking, we can see that there are multiple holes in this frame for lining up this cross member. So what I'm hoping is that one of these sets of holes will be the right distance back to put this cross member to go for this Turbo 400 transmission. I don't know if I have the ability to set this camera up where I can show you what I'm doing down here, but I'll see what I can do. All right, so what I'm going to try to do is I got to get my transmission mount and just put it on the back of the transmission, finger tight for right now, and then I'll get the transmission cross member and try to lay it in here and see if I can get something to line up. So I'll do that. I'm going to have my back turned to you while I do all this, but try to get the camera set up. So I'll probably, time lapse through this, but I did want to get it under here where you guys can see what I'm doing. Just trying to get the transmission cross member put in place. Okay, first problem already. This transmission mount, I guess I got it for a 350 turbo in some other application. I don't know. So it looks like the bolt holes for this 400 turbo, it's like a 1/4 of an inch wider bolt spacing. So I don't have the correct one, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to slot these holes out the end, because if I put a flat washer on the bolt, then it'll still hold this thing in place. I can replace it later, but I need to get this thing put on some way, shape, or form so that I can see if I can get the cross member bolted up. And then putting it on, if I slot these holes and put this on there, it's still gonna do what it's designed to do, even if I don't change it out later, but I will change it out later. I know that the bolt spacing on the other side, the threaded holes, are the ones that are correct for my cross member. So I'm gonna use this, I just gotta modify it a little bit. Okay, if nothing else, I have fulfilled the promise of throwing sparks. What I did was just slot these holes out. Now I've got these grade 8 fasteners with a flat washer. I'll be able to put this thing on and try to get it figured out from there. In all actuality, it'll probably work like this. And if I'm trying to be completely honest about what I'm going to do later, once I get this thing bolted up, I probably won't ever change it. Okay, there is a set of holes in the frame that's going to line up with my cross member sitting where it's at now, and everything doing what it's supposed to do. finally got the transmission cross member in place. Just got the bolts finger tight, and I probably won't bother tightening them up because I know for sure I've got to pull this back out. Got this bolted where it's supposed to be. Some of the holes did line up, so that was all good. Now I got to pull the transmission over with a ratchet strap because it's not lined up exactly right, and laying on my back, it's too hard to try to fight it. So I'm going to hook to it with a ratchet strap, pull it over that way. Alright, got the transmission kind of in here. Got all the bolts kind of finger tied in here, just holding everything in. Was able to get the transmission squared up in the tunnel. So it's sitting where it needs to be. Had to make a couple of adjustments on the engine mounts. So here's all that. I have to come back out, but at least I got it all sorted out to where we know it's gonna fit and be there when we get ready to bolt it in the final time. All right, so one of the things that I talked about in my last video was once I got the engine and transmission put into place, the intake plenum should be on 0. So it's probably a half a degree off. So just showed you it's probably about a half a degree off, and right now it's showing a half a degree pointed down too far. So when we get the rest of the weight on the front end and the front end settles just a little bit more, it'll probably take up that half a degree. So the benefit of being able to utilize the factory mounting locations for the transmission and the engine mounts is that it normally puts you exactly where you're supposed to be. It worked out really well. This thing's right where it needs to be as far as the angles and where it's sitting. Everything's gonna fit in here right, which I had a small block Chevy in this thing before. It came with a small block Chevy, but I'm using different engine mounts. Definitely went to a different transmission. Had to move the transmission mount back to some different mounting holes, but all that stuff was there. Everything lined up like it was supposed to. So now I can move on to something else. So I'm gonna look around and see what it is that I have that I can bolt on next, and we'll just keep bolting parts on and see if we can make some progress on this thing. Hey y'all, I know what you're thinking. Had to be a lot of time that has passed from the previous section of my video where I'm all bundled up and got my ears covered up and I'm wearing a flannel shirt and gloves and just look like I'm freezing, to today. It's a new day here in Empty Pocket Speed Shop. But you would be wrong, because this is Tennessee and we love our extreme weather swings that we have here. We really enjoy it when it goes from 7 degrees to 70 degrees in 4 days. It has been 2 days since I've been out here to the shop, and the last time I was out here I had a fire going, I had my patio heater going. It was only about 40 degrees in the shop, and today it was 73 and sunshine. So I've got the doors open, out here in a t-shirt, just really enjoying the weather today. I actually had to work outside most of the day, so it's been a nice day. So what we're going to do is try to get a few parts put on the car. I gathered up a few things. You've seen already in the video, got the transmission cross member installed, got it bolted up. So what I'm going to try to do today is go ahead and tighten down the engine mount bolts. Then I've got the alternator and water pump sitting here, so I'm going to get the water pump put on, and then I'm going to try to round up the brackets that I need to put the alternator on. I don't even know if I have them, because the alternator brackets that were on this car are now on Roscoe, because I left all that stuff on the engine when I did the engine swap. So I'm gonna have to dig around the shop and see if I can even find another set of alternator brackets. Another thing that's gonna hold me back is the original alternator brackets, which is what I had on War Machine that's now on Roscoe. Was the kind of alternator bracket that goes up and has a bolt that goes down into the intake manifold. Well, this intake manifold doesn't have that provision, so I've got to find the other style of alternator bracket. I know I have some stuff like that laying around here somewhere in my buckets of spare parts, so I'm going to look for that. But just in order to be able to get something done today, I'm going to try to get the water pump bolted on. So real quick, I'm gonna have to try to dig into my bolt bin, find the correct length bolts to be able to put the water pump on, and then we'll be able to at least install some parts on there. So you guys bear with me for a minute. I gotta round up some parts, and then we're gonna throw some parts on this thing and try to make a little bit of progress. All right, as promised, I'm gonna do a real quick montage of some of the military aircraft that I was involved in helping maintain while I was in Afghanistan. Plus some of this footage is also just training missions from here in the United States. So I'm going to put this together to a little bit of music. I hope you guys enjoy watching these helicopters take off and fly around a little bit. I just thought I'd do a little bit of something different, have a little break from throwing parts at the car. So maybe for the next 60 seconds or maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes, I'm going to throw together some helicopter footage from my archives. So you guys enjoy. All right, so watch some of my other videos. You know, I like to, before I try to put this water pump on an engine, even though this engine's been rebuilt and it was hot tanked and everything before we assembled it, I'm gonna run my thread chasing bolt through the threads just to make sure that there's no dirt in there, and then I'll clean everything back out with some brake clean to make sure that the gaskets and stuff will seal off. All I was trying to do there, clean the holes out with my thread chaser. Then I blew them out with some brake clean. I was using my little air tool there to clean them out, get the liquid out of them. That way there's nothing in the hole. Now I'm ready to install my water pump. I don't have to worry about stuff creeping out of the hole and messing up my RTV. I'm going to put a thin coat of RTV on both sides of the gasket, and I'm going to slam the water pump on there, and then that'll be done, and then we'll see what we're going to do next. So on a small block Chevy, I apologize for the camera angle here. I'm trying to get some of what I'm actually working on in the video. On a small block Chevy, old school, there's a hole right here. It goes into the water jacket. So that hole, the bolt that goes in that hole has to have a little bit of RTV on the threads or thread sealer. If I had actual thread sealer, I would put thread sealer on the bolt, but I don't. So I'm just going to put a little bit of RTV. Doesn't take a lot, just a little bit of RTV on the threads to seal it off where that doesn't seep water out through the threads. And then the rest of them, the other 3 holes are blind holes, so you don't really have to worry about them. We can just put them in dry. Just got the water pump on. I think the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and tighten up my engine mount bolts while I'm right here thinking about it. And then I've got to take the crank bolt out so that I can see if I've got the correct pulleys to run my alternator. Of course, I don't have my alternator brackets yet either. So let me grab my tools and I'll tighten up these engine mount bolts, and then we'll move on from there. All right, engine mounts are tight. The water pump is on. I'm going to zip that bolt out of the crank pulley, and we'll see if we can find some pulleys that are going to line up correctly. I've got a few sets of pulleys that I've scrounged around and found. Like I said, everything that I had on this car before that I was using to operate my fan, my water pump and my alternator is now on a different car. So I'm having to try to find everything again to make another setup. Worst case scenario, they sell an alternator bracket and pulley setup from like Summit or Jegs. I know I've seen them on Summit. They're not very expensive. if all you're trying to do is run an alternator in your water pump, they're pretty cheap. So if I can't find what I need this afternoon, then tonight I'll get that ordered, and we can just do that a little bit later, and we can move on to something else. Because I do have my spark plugs, but I probably won't put the spark plugs in until I get the headers up in here, because I know on the driver's side the spark plugs are kind of in the way of being able to slide the header up through there. So I could get the headers and start getting them in place. Just get them up in here, then put the plugs in, then bolt the headers on. So lots of stuff to continue bolting on, and we're just going to keep on moving. I've got my thermostat. I'm going to have to look around, find the water neck. So, you know, we're getting there. I mean, I don't know what you guys expect. I don't know where anything's at. I said I was going to thrash and do the thing, so I'm thrashing and doing the thing, but part of my thrashing is going to be finding all the parts that are laying around this shop that I need to put this thing together. So bear with me, guys. So the next portion of my video is brought to you by the Empty Pockets Animal Rescue Program. Please take a look at these fine-looking young babies that need your help. As you can see, these dogs are pitiful. They were rescued from cruel and unusual punishment, and they're suffering. And I just want you to know that the only way that they can get another treat is if you hit the subscribe button. If you hit the like button. For every like and subscribe that you do for Empty Pockets Speed Shop YouTube channel, these poor little innocent dogs will get another treat. And as you can tell, they're all desperately in need of another treat. Please help our rescue animals here at the Empty Pockets Animal Rescue. They need your help. Thank you for your support. Just kidding. Now I'm going to put some pictures of what my dogs actually look like when they're happy. Those 3 dogs are actually my dogs, and I love all my dogs, and they're treated like princesses. They're all female rescues, but they are treated 100% like royalty around our house. They get to sit where they want, sleep where they want, eat as much as they want, go in and out and play in their big backyard as much as they want. Even got some pictures I'll show you here where Annie, my little princess baby Annie, got to go to the Tri-5 Nationals with me last year and walk around and look at cars, so I'll share a couple of pictures of that. Just wanted to take a little break and share my dogs with you. But hey, if you guys can make my YouTube channel start making money, then my dogs will even have more of a life of luxury than they do now. So hey, make it happen. It's up to you. get back to working on the car now. Hope you guys have enjoyed the other stuff that I've thrown in on this video with the helicopters and my dogs. If you did, leave me a comment. If you didn't like it, leave me a comment. I'd like to know what I can do to keep the audience engaged on my videos. I enjoy just watching car stuff, but some people like a little bit more in there. But if you'd like to see more of this kind of stuff interjected in here, the main purpose of my videos is still going to be to work on cars, but I can throw some other stuff in there to make it a little bit more fun for the viewers. So you guys let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, looked all over the shop. I don't have a set of pulleys for a long water pump that everything matches up. So I'm probably going to just get on the internet later on when I go back in the house and order the pulley and bracket kit. Like I said, you can get those for a small block Chevy. They're pretty cheap. And since that's the only thing I run on my car's alternator, it's no big deal. But the pulley system that comes with that kit, I'm pretty sure that if I wanted to put power steering back on the car, I could. I know somewhere in this shop all that stuff exists, but or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe I used it on another project. That's a good possibility since it's been a few years. So what I decided I would go ahead and do, I got my headers down out of the loft. Man, guys, I'm going to show you my headers. They're kind of sad, you know, but there's no holes completely rotted through them. They're in pretty sad shape. These were swap meet headers when I bought them, and I ran them for 2 years on this car, and then I took them off and put them up in the loft. And Tennessee, in case you don't know, the humidity here, I think I've showed you in some of the other videos, you come out here in the shop sometimes, and the humidity and the way the temperature changes and all that kind of stuff, there'll be water dripping off of everything in my shop. Engines, chassis, whatever. These things, since they didn't have any paint on them and they're not coated or anything, I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but there's like rusted places all in the headers. I think maybe I can get another season out of them. I'm going to try, because I just don't know that a new set of headers are in my budget right now. If I have to order those pulleys, then that's money. I've already spent money. I've still got a few more things that I got to get. I went and bought this alternator and water pump the other day, so that was money. So I'm going to have to try to use these headers and hope that they don't blow a hole in them too quickly till I can save up a little bit more money. So I'm going to slide these headers into where they go, and then once I do that and see where they're going to lay for me to have access to the spark plugs, then I can go ahead and put my spark plugs in. Once I get the spark plugs in, then we can install the headers, if I can find my header bolts and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to try to get a few more parts on. All right, got my headers leaned up against the side of the car, kind of up in place. So I'm going to get my spark plugs and get them ready to start installing. I was talking about this engine, since I've got aluminum heads on the engine, I am going to put just a little bit of anti-seize on the threads of my spark plugs. That's more of a long-term, safety precaution, so that the spark plugs don't get seized up in the head, and then when I try to take them out later, pull the threads out of the spark plug hole. I don't want to have to deal with that kind of stuff. Okay. Turn the camera off for a few minutes so I can go look for parts. If you guys watched some of my other videos, you saw that I put a little 305 in my Studebaker truck and I put some shorty headers on it. Well, the header bolts that I used to put those headers on was the last set of header bolts that I had in my junk drawer over there. So I don't have any header bolts. Can't put my headers on. So then I thought, all right, no problem. I'll get some more header bolts. I'll go ahead and put the thermostat in and the water neck and get that done. Looked all over the shop and can't find the water neck that I thought I had for this car. Pretty sure I got one somewhere. I just don't know where it's at right now. So anyway, can't put the thermostat in and the water neck on. Can't put pulleys on and all that. So I'm kind of at a standstill. I've got to order some parts. So I think what I'm going to do is, it's getting pretty late. I don't have my camera turned where you can see outside. It got dark a while ago. I got kind of a late start today out here in the shop because I had other work to do. Because you guys, I don't do this full time. I have a job, plus I just have other responsibilities. So anyway, this is about all I can get done for today. But I am going to go in the house, order some parts, and then got to do some kind of inventory and figure out exactly what I need to finish hooking everything up. All right. I have gathered up a few parts. I did mess around. I ordered some steel pulleys for a small block Chevy application, but while I was still looking for other stuff, I found the companion crank pulley to my aluminum pulley set. I'm not running the aluminum. I'm not going to put the aluminum pulleys on there for any other reason than I have them. And if I don't put them on this engine, they're just going to continue to sit on the shelf and gather dust. So I'm going to go ahead and put the aluminum pulleys on here. And then the pulleys that I ordered will go on my next engine that I put together. So I'm going to get started putting some more parts on. I've got the pulleys, water neck for the thermostat, the gasket, the thermostat. I've got my distributor sitting over here so I can get the distributor put in. I'm going to pop the valve covers off and run through the valve lash. I don't have my gaskets. I've got them ordered to be able to put my valve covers back on, but that's okay. I can get a lot of stuff done here, and that's probably all the time I'm going to have anyway. So let's just fly in here and start putting some parts on. And I'll move the camera over here so it has a little bit better view of what I'm working on. And I'm just going to throw in here and get some parts installed. So the other issue that you might run into, so here's another thing, and I should have checked this. Stuck the pulleys on there with no studs in the water pump just to see if they were going to line up like they were supposed to, and they do. Small block Chevy water pumps have come with two different bolt patterns. They're always a 4-bolt pattern, but sometimes they have the big bolt pattern, sometimes they have a small bolt pattern. That aluminum pulley for the water pump has the small bolt pattern, and my water pump has the big bolt pattern. Some water pumps come with both bolt patterns so that you can use either one. This one does not. So, as usual, working on cars is fun. Looked around, nothing I had here was going to work properly, and I started thinking I'd kind of like to be able to use these aluminum pulleys. I got them at a swap meet. I don't really have very much money in them at all. Probably got less money in these aluminum pulleys than in the steel ones that I ordered. So I had a steel pulley that had the correct bolt pattern on it, and I just put them together, lining up the center hole, and put some transfer punch marks on this pulley and re-drilled the correct bolt pattern on it so that I could go ahead and put this water pump pulley on. And not that it made any difference, but a bunch of stuff happened in between the last couple of shots I've got here, and I had to stop working on the car for a while anyway, so I wanted to get something done today. Alright, got my pulleys on there, they're lined up good. Fanciest parts I've ever put on this car is aluminum pulleys, so I don't know. It's probably going to add 5 horsepower, those aluminum pulleys. Right, so try to get a little bit more work done here. Got my thermostat gasket, my thermostat down here. I actually found, I know I've said earlier in the video I couldn't find my water neck. I pulled this off another engine that I had sitting over there that I won't be running anytime soon, so did the old spray paint rebuild on it. Got it looking halfway decent. But you know, if it looked too good, then it would look too good for my car. I meant to put some anti-seize on those bolts. I think I'm just gonna leave them alone. May have to pull it back out anyway, but that gets that on there, covers up that hole. So now we'll just put my paper towel in there to keep a mouse from crawling down into my water neck, or a dirt dauber, or whatever else we got around here. So I think I want to get the valve covers off, get the stud girdles off, and start taking a look at the valve train on this thing. All right. So, thought I'd take a second to talk about my valve train stuff here. So, usually I'm talking about how I don't have a whole lot of money to spend on these cars, and I don't. But what I do, what you guys don't see and what you haven't seen, because I just started doing these videos a month ago. It took me almost a year to accumulate all the parts that I needed to assemble this engine. The same thing, the engine that's going in my 55 back here, I've got a big block Chevy that I built for it, or I built it and I didn't even have the car at the time. I wasn't sure where I was going to put the engine, but I knew I wanted to build it. It's a 427 big block, forged crank, forged rods, forged pistons. It's a good engine, but it's a street motor. It's only got like 9.8 to 1 compression or something like that, so it'll run on pump gas. But it's a pretty good piece. Anyway, it took me over a year. I probably spent almost 18 months accumulating the parts and horse trading and buying and selling stuff. And when I would sell something, if I turned a profit on it, then I would take that money and put it into the engine. So these two engines are stuff that I built over the course of a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then I got them finished, and both of them been sitting here in the shop for over a year waiting on me to do something with them. But it's also having to come up with the money to, once you get the engine built, then you've also got to buy water pump alternator. Like I'm reusing headers and stuff like that. But you know, it takes a while. If you don't have a lot of money to put into it all at once, then you got to come up with the money, and then you do it as you can. So the Lunati stud girdles, I got those used at a swap meet. But some of this other stuff, my Scorpion rocker arms, I bought those new. The valve springs are new, and I don't remember the brand name of those right off, but you know, the Urson lifters, I got those used from a friend of mine that we did some trading, so I didn't even have to pay any money for those. I traded him some parts, and I've got the used Urson lifters out of one of his drag motors, so they looked good. Hopefully they'll last. Hopefully they'll live and not break one as soon as I start driving this thing. But you know, so some quality parts. But I told you guys in the first video, the bottom end of this thing, with the exception of the pistons, was all, I bought it off a guy. Everything was there, and he was trying to get rid of it, and I got a really good deal on it, kind of like a swap meet type find. So this engine, I don't have that much money tied up into it, but if you start looking at catalog pricing for everything that I've got in the engine, it's a pretty expensive engine. Like I said, I probably only have about half in it what it would cost to build it new if you just started from scratch. So if you're patient and you can wait about coming across good deals and doing swap meets and doing horse trading on marketplace or whatever, you can eventually gather up enough stuff that you can put together a pretty good engine. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to check all the valve lash on this thing, just for my peace of mind. Baker Engine Machine and Fab put this thing together, and I trust him, but he told me, hey, before you start driving this thing, you need to run back through the valves, because for those of you that maybe are not familiar with this kind of setup, what I'm running, I have a Howard's hydraulic roller cam, but I'm running solid roller lifters. And when you do that, the valve lash is set different than a regular roller cam. Get a regular roller cam, the valve lash is going to be somewhere between 16 and 22, maybe 24 at the most, depending on what the manufacturer tells you to do. and you got to set it hot. If you're running solid roller lifters with a hydraulic roller cam profile, you can set the valve lash cold on 0. You call it 0, but it's not 0. It's really going to be 1 or 2 thousandths. And then when everything heats up, it'll give you about 8 or 9 thousandths valve lash hot. And you don't have to take my word for that. If you have access to the Motor Trend, well, not Motor Trend anymore, canceled all that. It's on Discovery Plus now. If you go back and watch episodes of Engine Masters, they did an episode where they did this on one of their engines. It's been several years ago, and I don't remember what season it's from. But Steve Brule, the main guy at West Tech Performance out there in California that ran the engine dyno for all of those dyno sessions on Engine Masters, they did this. And Steve Brule is the one that talked about how to set up solid roller lifters on a hydraulic roller cam profile. And he said, if you set them on basically 0, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to where when I tighten up the adjuster screw and torque it down, I still want to be able to spin the push rod with my fingers, but I don't want it to really be any lash, like not enough to put a 2 or 3 thousandths feeler gauge in there, but it's not going to be 0 because I'm still going to be able to spin the push rod with my fingers. Set them all like that, and then when it gets hot, it'll have about 8 thousandths lash because everything grows. This is the same setup on the engine that's in Roscoe. The cam's a little bit smaller, but it's a Howard's cam. It also has Howard's solid roller lifters. These are Urson's. Shouldn't make a difference on that part of it. But everything being the same, hydraulic roller cam profile with solid roller lifters, aluminum roller rocker arms, stud girdles, the whole thing. Got a little bit different brand name stuff on the engine that's in Roscoe, but it's the same setup on top of the engine. And with the cam and everything. I set the valves on Roscoe when that engine was in this car at the beginning of 2022. And I have not had the valve covers back off of that. I did my break-in. I set them. I did my break-in 200 or 300 miles driving around back roads. Brought it in here, pulled the valve covers back off. They didn't even need to be adjusted, but I ran through them again anyway. They were all just fine, just like they were. I set them, and I have raced that engine 2 years in this car and 1 year in Roscoe, and I haven't pulled the valve covers back off of it. So this setup works as long as you've got good components and nothing bends or nothing breaks, or you don't have a rocker arm failure or a lifter failure, something crazy. This setup does work. The hydraulic roller cam profile is easier on your valve train. And also you have to keep in mind that I don't rev my engines very much. The engine over there that's in Roscoe has never been more than 6,500 RPMs, and it's only been 6,500 a few times. I normally shift it at 6,000. Every now and then I'd shift it at 61 or 62, but that's where the cam was set up to. It was maxed out at 6,200. You weren't going to make any power beyond that, so I was shifting at 6,000. This engine is set up to make power up to 6,700, so that's probably where I'm going to shift to 67 or 68. So it does have a little bit bigger cam in it, but I expect that this thing will be the same. I'm going to set the valve lash right now, put it all together, get it running, finish my suspension and all that stuff. We're going to go drive this thing around the back roads and put a couple of 100 miles on it, and pull it back in the shop, drain the oil, change the filter, put fresh oil back in it, and then I'm going to pull the valve covers off and check the valve lash again, and this thing will be ready for racing season. And if everything goes well, I won't have to touch it again the rest of the year, and maybe not even next year. So that's even with me driving these things on the street and racing them and just, doing all that. It's a very easy way to run your roller cam and not have the violence of a regular roller cam profile in there. So I'm gonna get busy doing this. I'll do some time-lapse stuff so you guys don't have to watch the boring procedure of me setting valve lash on this thing. All I'm trying to see, I'm not even gonna put the gaskets in there. I've got the metal impregnated rubber gaskets ordered. They should be here in order for me to get them installed next week. But I wanted to see what kind of clearance I have in here. Oh yeah. So these spacers, the reason I'm putting the spacers on here, these valve covers are probably clear without the spacer. But the spacer allows me room to put my grommet in here for my oil fill cap and my PCV valve. So that's what it's going to look like when we get it all bolted together. So I've got the valve lash done, got all that done. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Empty Pocket Speed Shop. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Please subscribe, like, share, help me get this thing built up. Hope you guys are enjoying what you're seeing. If there's something specific that you'd like to see me explain better or do different, or whatever I can add to my videos to add to the entertainment value, put that in the comment section. I'll try to respond to all the comments. I'm not getting very many right now, so no problem doing it. Once again, I want to thank all of you guys, everybody that watches, for building up my channel, getting my subscriber numbers up, watching my videos. Hope you continue to watch. I hope you tell your friends about it. If you haven't subscribed and you're watching my videos, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. It helps the channel grow, bumps it up toward the top in the algorithms and all that kind of crazy stuff that I don't know anything about. So you guys continue to watch Empty Pocket Speed Shop. We're going to keep on working on War Machine and get this thing ready to go back to the track. You guys have a good week. See you next time on Empty Pocket Speed Shop.